Om Shanti. Welcome to day 3 of this Raj Yoga course. Yesterday, we discussed, or I asked a question that am I a body and I have a soul, or am I a soul and I have a body? Why did I ask this question? Because it makes a big difference in the way I think. And so, what I'd like to say now, very deep, is that whatever words I use after the word I am, that determines my thoughts, my words, and my behavior. Whatever words I use after the word I am, that will determine my thoughts, words, and actions. So now, when I say I am fed up or I am tired, what kind of thoughts, what kind of words, and what kind of actions will there be? If I associate myself with the physical, anything physical, then I will not be able to discipline my mind. Because I am associating with the physical, I am rich, I am poor, I am educated, I am this, I am that, then I am not able to discipline the mind. It's only when I associate myself with the being am I able to discipline the mind. The reason for that is because the mind is within the being. We have a lot of expressions, a lot of sayings to do with the mind. And so, one saying we say very often is mind your own business. We also say, my mind is all over the place, or I can't control my mind. So, today we're going to be looking at the mind. Where is the mind and what does the mind do? Yesterday we looked at where is the soul and why is the soul in that particular place. There has to be a reason for everything. And so I'd like to ask the co-hosts if they can spotlight me, and so that I can explain about the mind and how and where it functions from. So, the mind is one of the faculties of the soul. It's like, for example, you have a college or a university. Then that college or university has many different departments. Like you have a department store, John Lewis. It's called John Lewis, but within John Lewis, you have many different departments. So the soul is exactly the same. It is called soul, it is called spirit, or like the list of words that I gave yesterday. But within that, there are 3 departments. And so, what are those departments? First department is called the mind. Each department has its own function, and the function of each department is different. They don't replicate, they don't duplicate what the other one is doing. And so, let us have the slide which will show us what the mind does. If the co-hosts can put up what the mind does. You will see before you a list. And one thing we established at the beginning of the course, that the purpose, the function of the mind is to think. It will not stop thinking no matter how much you want to stop thinking. No matter how much you want to blank the mind, it is not physically possible. It's like you can't tell the sun to stop shining. If it's not shining in the UK, it's definitely shining in Africa or Australia, but it is doing its function. And so the mind thinks. The mind creates ideas. Throughout the day, you have so many different ideas. Desires also happen within the mind. So we have, I want to eat, I want to go out, I want to sleep, I want to meet so and so. These are all desires. I want. And so throughout the day, see how many desires the mind creates. I want to have a pizza, I want to go for ice cream, I want to watch a movie. The mind has thousands of desires per day. Now, the next thing that's written is travels. How many of you can feel or you can make your mind travel? If I were to say to you, with your thoughts, go to Spain, would you be able to do that? It's a shame there's no interaction on this at the moment. But would you be able to take your mind to Spain, even if you haven't been there physically? I think we can. And the reason why we can take our thoughts, our mind, to another place, even though we haven't been there, is because we have seen images, we have seen the world map, we have watched TV programs, we are exposed to magazines, we have had friends who have been there. And so we can go anywhere in this physical world with the power of thought. This is why it is said that the mind is very powerful, because the mind can travel places. But that is not the only way that it can travel, not just places. Places are okay. Places are not so bad. If your mind goes to different places throughout the day, if it goes to the office, if it goes home, if it goes anywhere, it's fine. It's not damaging. But there is somewhere else that the mind can travel to, and that somewhere is not so healthy. It's not so good for the mind. And that is, our mind has the ability to go into the past. We can go back so many years, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40, 50 years ago. As a child, I was treated like this. As a child, my mother taught me this. As a child, I went so and so place. So the mind is able to travel places and into the past. Sometimes our past is traumatic. Sometimes our past is chaotic. And often I see that people don't actually want to remember their past, which is fine. However, do I have that much control over the mind? We are going to use this ability to travel when it comes to meditation. So we know we are capable of it. So that is why we can never give an excuse that I cannot meditate. If I can take my mind to Spain, to Dubai, to Singapore, to down the road to London, I can take my mind to a place where there is unending power, unending peace, unending calmness. So that is what we will discuss in another lesson, where to take the mind when I meditate. Because meditation is not just for relaxation. That is a byproduct of meditation, relaxation. The purpose of meditation is not just to create nice thoughts. The purpose of meditation is not to escape reality. The purpose of meditation is to empower myself. The purpose of meditation is to cleanse, to heal the mind. So please take note of this, that the mind is able to travel. Another thing which the mind is capable of is imagination. If I want to, I can imagine a cream cake, I can imagine the beach. I can imagine being with somebody I love. I can imagine all sorts. This is why we say that our imagination, it can go anywhere. The next one, feelings and emotions. This is also a huge capacity of the mind. The mind is the department. Within the department, these are the things that are happening. Feelings and emotions take up a lot of our energy. Feelings and emotions don't happen by themselves. Feelings and emotions are an offshoot. So when you plant a seed, you will get shoots which grow above the ground, and you will get roots which go beneath the ground. So this is what feelings and emotions are. Feelings are deeper than emotions. The feelings are the roots. Emotions are the shoots. And thoughts are the seed. So if we can now, the slide can be taken away. Within the mind, all of these things are happening non-stop. The mind is like a horse, a wild horse. Means the mind is constantly moving. And we need to discipline or to train this wild horse. And so, how are we going to do that? Who is going to do that? I would ask the co host that if they could spotlight me because I can't see anything. I'm getting a blank screen. Nimisha, I'm getting a blank screen. Is that normal?
Om Shanti Induben. I can see you.
Oh, you can see me?
Yes, you're fine.
Okay, all right, okay. Technology. Okay, never mind. So the mind is like a wild horse. It is non-stop running all over the place. It's like when you have your tablet or your phone, you have so many applications open. You have an app which is browsing something else, you have an app which is watching something else. The same applies to our mind. So, when so many apps are open within the mind, then what is happening is we are consuming battery. And when we are consuming battery, but we are not getting a supply, we are consuming, but we don't have a source of power, then it becomes very dangerous. Then we will feel as if literally, we are on the edge. We have very little capacity. We have very little capacity to tolerate, to understand people, and we will always be reacting. Instead of responding, we are constantly reacting. We are reacting to whatever's happening around us. I hope you all had a chance to make a note of the things which the mind is capable of. If you have made a note, then I'd like you to draw a line and right next to that, not below, but next to that, we're going to look at the second department of the being. The second department is called intellect. This word intellect has got nothing to do with intellectual. Another word which I'd like to use for intellect, and it's actually a Hindi word, and so some of you might be familiar with this word, and that word is buddhi. Buddhi means the intellect. There's a saying in India, some parents might say to their child that think before you make a decision. Think, understand, then make a decision. So these three things, thinking, understanding, making a decision, they are all separate. They are separate departments. So now we're going to look at the slide called the intellect, the second department. And we're going to see what it is that the second department is capable of. One thing I'm going to ask you after this mind and intellect exercise has happened, I'm going to ask you which one works harder, the mind or the intellect. Now, the intellect does does very different things to what the mind does. If the mind thinks, then the intellect understands. The intellect or the buddhi also is something very, very important. It is my inner voice, means it is my conscience. My intellect speaks to me. That inner voice is speaking to me. It is guiding me. Conscience, we say, you must have all heard the expression, conscience bites. Or I can't live with my conscience if I don't do something in particular. Very few of us understand the conscience. Means it's always been portrayed as complicated, or mostly it's portrayed as we have a guilty conscience. This is where we carry our guilt within the conscience. Our conscience is our biggest guru. It is our guide. It will tell us what is right, what is wrong. It will tell us what is good, what is bad. It will tell us what is real, what is an illusion. It will tell us what is truth and what is false. There is this much power in the conscience, it will guide us. I will give you an example, and please don't be offended by the example. I just feel it's an easy example, and many will relate to it. So, the example I'm going to give is smoking. When someone smokes, then there is an inner voice which speaks. Sometimes it doesn't speak, it squeaks. It squeaks means it's trying to get itself heard, but it's scared. But it does have something to say. What will my inner voice say when or if I smoke or if I do something that I don't feel is right? What will my inner voice say? My inner voice will say, don't, don't. It's not good for you. Please, you can't afford it. It's going to damage your health. It's not socially correct. Means there are different things the inner voice or the conscience is saying. It is trying to make itself heard, but why is it scared? Why is it not able to say outright, don't? Because our response to our own inner voice is shut up. Shut up. What do you know about my life? What do you know about the stress I'm under? What do you know about how much I have to go through? So, mostly we tell our inner voice or we tell our conscience when it speaks, we tell it to shut up. It's like, I'm going to give another example. It's like when a child comes from school, his favorite television program is on. So what does he do? He throws off his shoes, he throws his blazer, he puts his bag in one corner and sits in front of the TV. So now the mother comes and she sees everything all over the place, the bag, the blazer, the shoes, everything. So what will she say to that boy, to her child? She'll say, put your blazer on the hanger, put your shoes away, put your bag in your room. Means the mother will try and train the child that don't just leave everything around for me to pick up after you. Don't instill these habits. And what does the child say? Yeah, no problem. Wait, I'll do it later. I'll do it later. Oh, mom, please shut up. This is the kind of reaction the mother will get. I'm not a mother. I know, but I know these things because I've seen myself do it. So, this is exactly what's happening with our inner voice, our consciousness. It is our guru, it is trying its best to train us, to guide us, and it will guide us in the wrong direction. But if I don't listen to the conscience, if I keep telling it, shut up, shut up, shut up, then it stops speaking. This is when we say we have killed the conscience. The next thing the intellect is capable of is it can analyze. The intellect contains logic, means a child. I remember when I was in Nigeria, I was in a temple and I was in the temple, I was waiting because I was meant to speak. So I was just sitting there and a mother brings in her child. Child must have been what, 7 or 8, if that. And the child wasn't very happy to go to the temple. You could tell. Literally, the mother was dragging him. And so she said to him, there are all of these images, these idols in front of him in the temple. And the mother says to him that, do the worship of the idols. And the child, very loudly, so that everybody in the temple could hear, he says, Mom, which one of these is God? And the mother did not have an answer because there is a lineup of images. So even at that age, 7 or 8, he's asking, which one of these is God? Means he wants logic. The child, so young, yet they still want logic. Why do they turn away from certain things? Because logic is not there. Science has provided us with logic. And the intellect has the ability to analyze any situation. Supposing, I'm going to give an example of how the mind and intellect works. Within the mind, there is the desire, I need a new mobile phone. There is nothing wrong with that desire. Every few years, you have to change your mobile phone. That's the way they're made, but they want you to get rid of the old one and buy new ones. Otherwise, how will the industry keep growing? So the desire, I need a new mobile phone. That happens in the mind. Then the intellect kicks in. What does the intellect do? It has the ability to analyze all the information it's collecting from here and there. So, what will it analyze? What color should I buy? What make should I buy? Should I get Samsung or iPhone, or I don't know anything beyond that? Or should I wait for the latest one to come out? Should I get an oldish type? Should I get 16 GB, 32 GB, 128 GB? What capacity should I get? Which model should I get? Should I get contract or should I get pay as you go? One desire. I need a phone. And to fulfill that one desire, we analyze our choices. And we want the best deal. Nowadays, the computer does all of that for us. But there was a time when we had to do it all ourselves. So, whatever decision I have to make, prior to the decision, we analyze. Even when it comes to what should I wear for an interview, we analyze what to wear. And so this whole process happens within the intellect. The intellect is able to discern. It can discern, like I said, within conscience. It can discern between right and wrong. It can discern between, for example, you're accepted in University of Warwick and the University of London. The intellect has to make a decision. Prior to the decision, it will discern what is better for it. The next you will see on the list, the intellect works like a vessel, means it can store information. It can store phone numbers and prices and all sorts of information. It is exactly like a vessel. The mind doesn't store, the mind is all over the place. But the intellect retains information. It retains data, whichever word you want to use. Now, like the mind has imagination, the intellect has a better power, a more um, a more useful power, and that is visualization. Imagination is for something that is not real. Visualization is for something you have visualized, you have seen. And so we are able to do both. We can either imagine or we can visualize. I want you to make a note of this ability also, because we will use this ability in meditations. Visualization is also used in big companies. And athletes also use this ability to visualize them winning or anything like that. The last ability of the intellect is called willpower. We have desires, we have ideas, we have all sorts of things. But when I make a decision, the intellect has made the decision. Supposing your decision is, I'm not going to smoke. Then what is needed? Visualization is needed and also willpower. We have become so weak in this willpower department that we make a decision. We make a New Year's resolution on the 1st of January, and by the 6th of January, it's broken. So that will tell us how much willpower I have. Even to discipline the mind, I need willpower. So now, for those who have drawn two sections, what the mind is capable of, what the intellect is capable of, I want you to look at both lists. And question I'm going to ask you: who works harder, the mind or the intellect? Who is working harder, mind or intellect? If anybody wants to speak up, then the host can unmute you, or somebody is saying in the chat box, somebody is saying intellect. Are there any other ideas, or is it just intellect? Is there anybody who wants to say anything? Which works harder? Study it before you answer. And then tell me why you've said what you've said. Which works harder, the mind or the intellect? The answer that came on the chat box was actually very right. It's very obvious that the intellect works harder. Now, today we are not going to speak about the third department because that is a huge department, and so we don't have time to cover that today. However, we will cover these two departments that we have just looked at. All of us feel or understand that there is a conversation happening, a dialogue happening here. Let me give you an example. In the morning, when the alarm goes off, then what does that conversation, that dialogue that's happening sound like? The dialogue sounds like this: oh no, please, just 5 more minutes. And then, in answer to that, just 5 more minutes, there will be the answer: but you have to go to work. It's already late. You've got so much to do. You have to iron your clothes. You have to prepare the breakfast. You have to have a shower. You have to have a cup of tea. Get up. And then, conversation: no, please, I didn't sleep all night. I just need 5, 10 more minutes. So, this dialogue is happening here. A dialogue is between two. So, what are those two things? Or where is this dialogue? Who does it involve? It involves the mind and the intellect. The mind is saying 5 more minutes, and the intellect, the logic, is kicking in and saying, nope, no 5 more minutes, you can't afford it. And the mind is saying, please, please, please. Intellect says, nope, no, you have to get up. So I'm just giving you a very basic example. Sometimes it's not a dialogue, it's an inner battle. The battle is happening. Supposing you have to go somewhere and you don't want to go. Supposing you have to go to a wedding and you just don't want to go. What is that dialogue going to sound like? You can write your own dialogues when something happens. Mind is saying, I don't want to go. Intellect is saying, but you have to. You're related to them. If you don't go, it becomes a big issue. If you don't go, they'll get offended. And the mind says, but I'm tired. All week I work. I need time for myself. And the intellect saying, get ready, go. And the mind is saying, I don't want to. So it's like there's a lot of tension. There's a lot of conflict happening within the being that is so tiny. There's a lot happening. In the beginning session, I told you that we would be looking at our inner world. And for those of you who have written, taken notes, look at your inner world. Look just what is happening within two departments. One thing I forgot in the first department, and I need to correct that, is attitude. Attitude belongs to the first department. So please do add that to your list if you've made notes. Attitude is something we create, and then that attitude works all the time. For example, If you were bitten by a dog when you were very young, what will be your attitude towards dogs? What will be your attitude towards dogs? If you were punished by your teacher when you were young, what is your attitude towards teacher? If you fell down in the snow once, what will be your attitude through the rest of the year when it snows? We create an attitude, and every time that situation comes up, that scene, that memory, that image, that what happened will come up. And you will say, oh, last year I fell in the snow. Or you will say, when people see you are scared of dogs, I was bitten by a dog. Means the attitude is set, it's firm, it's become rigid. And that is why people tell us, change your attitude. Or people tell us, or people use the expression, your attitude stinks. Or you'll have read the book. The book is a very good book, An Attitude of Gratitude. That to cultivate an attitude where I am grateful for everything that I have. I'm grateful for the oxygen I'm breathing. I'm grateful for the people in my life. And so our attitude is also part of the mind. Now we need to discuss more the relationship between these two departments. Because there is a relationship between them, they're conversing all day long. So there has to be a relationship. If somebody's conversing all day long, then it becomes a relationship. So, what is the relationship between mind and intellect? Mind and buddhi. Man, buddhi. Why am I going to explain to you the relationship between mind and intellect? Is because there is no way you can remember all of this, what you've learned just now. What happens in the mind, what happens in the intellect. So, if I explain the relationship, it will help you to remember who is capable of what the mind does, what the intellect does. The relationship is ditto mother and child. Now, who is the mother and who is the child? The mind is the child. Why do I say that? Because I asked you earlier, who is working harder? The mind or the intellect? And on the chat, I saw a couple of correct answers. The intellect works harder. So, in the relationship of mother and child, obviously the mother is working harder than the child. And it's not just a child, it is a very small child. So, the mind, the child, does very limited things. What does a baby do? Very limited. The baby cries, it wants food, it sleeps, it poops, and cries for it. No, it's crying, sleeping, wanting food, and poops. I think that's all a baby does. It demands attention. Ask a mother, how much time does she have to give to that child? And it's almost 24 hours. She has to keep an eye on the child all the time. If she doesn't, then the child screams, the child cries louder and louder for attention. The child sometimes just wants to be held and stroked, and then it becomes quiet. That is exactly how we need to treat our mind. That is meditation. The mind is screaming for attention. The mind is demanding nutrition. Nutrition in the form of pure positive thoughts. It isn't getting that nutrition. Shall I tell you what the mind is getting? As soon as you wake up, you switch on the news, and that's what's coming to the mind first thing in the morning. The news. How many died? How many survived? How many this and how many that? It's getting statistics. I know for a fact, I know a few people who, since when COVID started, they were watching the news constantly. And then after a while, they saw the impact it has on their well being. Many have actually stopped watching the news. I wouldn't be surprised if those on this Zoom are of the same thought, because the news is the same thing. Not only that, you're watching the news, so that's the first thing that the mind receives. Then the demands of the physical body: breakfast, shower, get ready, drive, traffic. So then that's the next thing that the mind gets, that fulfilling all these demands. Then meeting people, what are they going to talk to you about? What they heard in the news, what they listened to. Did you hear this and did you hear that? It was in the news. I read this. I read that. Where? Where will the mind get positivity from? It's made no effort. You've made no effort to feed the mind nutritious food. Somebody's written, I'm one of those who stopped watching the news. Congratulations. The mind is desperate. It doesn't have strength, it's a baby, but desperate for nutrition so that it can grow healthy. That's what we want, no? We want our mind to be healthy. Everybody on this Zoom platform is very aware of mental health, the attention the government is giving to mental health has increased because mental health is suffering big time, big time. We're not able to cope simply because the mind, the mental, is not getting nutrition. But then the question arises, well, how do I know what is nutrition for the mind? Since we started this course, the first few thoughts that I have given or that we learn in meditation, basic nutrition for the mind. The mind wants peace. It wants a moment of peace in which it can rejuvenate, in which it can restore its health, in which it can heal itself, in which cleansing can take place. And so the mind is the baby and the intellect is the mother. So if the mind is just crying, sleeping, pooping, and whatever, now the intellect, the mother, what does the mother have to do? So the mother has to take care of the baby. She has to do the cleaning. She has to do the shopping. She might even have to go to work. And she has to do everything else. And she has to sleep. And she has to look after herself. So obviously, the mother will be tired. And anyone that is tired, naturally, if someone is tired, when you feel tired, you will also feel weak. Means you don't have that strength within yourself physically. The same applies to the intellect. Intellect is tired. It is overworked and underpaid. Means it's doing so much work and not getting a thank you. Generally, what is happening? The soul is making this body function. It's working 24/7. And we are busy in adorning or feeding or exercising the body. We are doing so much for the physical, but we don't give a look in to the spirit. Where in actual fact, it's the spirit, the soul that makes this body function. If there is no soul, there is no physical body. Physical body is of zero value. How much value is a dead body? What do cultures do with a dead body? Those of you who have seen images of what's happening in India, the cremating, what is the value of that dead body? They're cremating them, like piling them up and cremating them. The body without the being is valueless. The value is actually for the being, the soul. So, mother and child. Mother, tired, overworked, underpaid, not getting a thank you. Child can't help it, he's small, he can't do anything for himself. So the mother has to look after the child. The intellect has to discipline the mind. Mother has to discipline the child, otherwise the child becomes mischievous. The child, if you leave it on the floor, it will go all over the place. It will not sit still. The mind is the same. You leave it to its own devices. That mind, you do what you want. I'm not going to try and control you. I've had enough. You go wherever you want, you stress, you do whatever you like. Leave it. Leave your mind alone. Don't bother it. What will it do? Your mind will go all over the place. It will go into the past, it will go places, and then after wandering around here and there, it will become tired and it will start screaming. It will become a very unhappy mind. This is why meditation teaches us to take care of our mind, because our mind is a baby and that baby needs discipline. So, that is one way of understanding the relationship between the mind and the intellect. Another example I will give you, and I like this example a lot, more than the mother and child one, that the intellect is the horse whisperer. Like I said earlier, the mind is like a wild horse. So, who is going to control that wild horse? Because that wild horse, if it's controlled, if it's trained properly, then it can run the races for me and I can earn good money from the races. People earn a lot of money from horse racing. The mind is the horse. The intellect is the horse whisperer. And this word horse whisperer, many may have not heard this word, but it is a profession. It is a proper, fully fledged profession. And they get paid well. So, what do? They train horses. How do they train horses? It's very, sometimes you can't even tell they're doing it. So, what they're doing, they're stroking the neck of the horse and they are whispering in its ear. Why? Because you cannot shout at a horse. If you shout at a horse, if you throw a stick and say, fetch, fetch, the horse will look at you like, who the hell do you think you are? The horse will look at you and not do anything. So the horse responds to the stroking and the whispering. Meditation is we are stroking the mind, means we are gentle with the mind, and we are whispering to it. What are we whispering? I am peaceful. I am light. I am immortal. I am powerful. These are the things I mean, the intellect is whispering to the horse. The intellect is the reins. The horse has reins. They need to be taken into control. So I've given you two examples of how to treat the mind and intellect. Meditation is natural. We are meditating anyway sometimes. We don't even realize it. When we're listening to music or something like that, we're reflecting. That's all meditation is. You're reflecting, but what are you reflecting on? Not candle, not flowers. You're reflecting on the beauty of the being. And that is what we will be discussing in our next session. We will be looking at the third department. The third department will take up the whole of tomorrow's session. And now I'm going to take this opportunity to ask that all of these lessons, 1 hour each, they will be very intense. And so there's no time for interaction, conversation, or if you want to share something, say something. So my question is, should we arrange maybe Saturday, 8 o'clock or 8:30 to just have interaction? If everybody is okay with that, then we will arrange the Zoom link, the same link, I hope. And on Saturday, we can have maybe 45 minutes. If anybody wants to ask any questions or share something, then we can do that on Saturday. It will not be a lesson, it will just be interaction. And so if you miss it, don't worry, the lessons will continue from next week, Monday to Thursday. We have tomorrow's lesson also. But if we get enough positive response, then on Saturday, 8:30, to have some form of interaction, because I actually prefer interaction. Because of COVID now, I've learned Zoom, etc. But interaction is good. I'm going to finish here now, and we're going to do meditation. Now you've got the hang of meditation. Om Shanti. I am feeding the baby. I'm going to feed my baby with pure thoughts. I'm going to feed it with nutritious thoughts. The baby is so hungry. The baby has been deprived. The mind is desperate. It's desperate for rest. It wants to sleep. But it needs feeding before it will sleep. I, the being, I am loving. Not I want love. I am love. I am pure. I keep my mind focused on the being of light that I am. My attention is towards the center of the forehead. Here, in this place, I reside. I am the master. I am the master of this physical body. I am the creator of thoughts. I am light, a being of light. And I take this opportunity to say thank you. I'm saying thank you to the being, to the soul, because it's keeping this body functioning. And whilst this body is functioning, I can create, I can perform good karma. Whilst this body is functioning, I can create powerful thoughts. I can give happiness through this physical body. I am a pure and peaceful soul. I am light. I am eternal. Om Shanti. Om Shanti. I will see you all tomorrow, same time. Thank you very much.